The Fujifilm X-T4. It has been my primary camera now for the better part of a year, and I can't sing its praises enough. But before I got my hands on this camera, I didn't really think much of it. In fact, I hadn't really heard the word Fujifilm very frequently at all before that point. It didn't really mean much to me. In the past, before I got my hands on the X-T4, I was a Canon guy. This was my camera for the better part of a decade, actually. And this is the Canon 650D. And I swore by this camera. I did and still do absolutely love this camera. Really, really good entry-level camera. I loved using it. I've got tons of photos taken on this. But I and my needs outgrew it, and so I moved on to the X-T4, but only because I'd used a friend's X-T4. If I hadn't, I probably never would have even thought of buying a Fujifilm. To me, the name seemed gimmicky. It didn't really seem like anything special. Fujifilm, I thought really that the main players were Canon, Sony, Nikon. That was all that was really in my sphere of knowledge. But I used the Fujifilm a handful of times when I borrowed it, and I thought it was amazing, so I got it for myself. In this video, I'm going to go through basically my experience with it. It's somewhat of a review, but all from experience. I don't care about the specs, I don't care about the numbers, I care about the results that it produces and the experience of actually using the camera. So if you want the specs and numbers, there's tons of videos out there you can watch. But if you want to hear about my experience with the camera and my opinions on it and actually using it, then this is exactly what this video is going to be. If you want to see more videos looking at gear, let me know. I'm not made of money, so I can't do a ton of them at the moment, maybe more in the future, but I'll certainly do what I can with what I have. And if you want any other videos about photography, cinematography, videography, documentaries, photography philosophy, you name it, then this is the place to be. So do drop a like and support this video, hit subscribe if you want to see more, and let me know what you want to see in the comments. And if you've used this camera at all, or any other similar cameras, similar models of the Fuji line, then I'd love to hear your experience with it and your opinions. We'll have a bit of a discussion in the comments, that is always welcome. But onto the first section, the design and the build. I would show you the camera in my hands right now, but you are actually looking through the lens of the Fuji, so I can't do that. I will have to run some B-roll or something through. But it is a gorgeous camera. It feels really high quality. You've got that lovely black leatherette finish around the camera and the nice metal top plate. My model is the black and silver, but you can get black and black as well, which is more low-key and still very attractive. I have actually been stopped before when using this and asked if I was shooting film, because it does have that look. Fujifilm have stuck true to their roots, albeit it might be a bit gimmicky to some, but I do think it creates a very attractive camera. So I'm certainly not complaining with the looks. It's strong, it's durable. I'm always really careful with my gear. I know it's tools, so I use it as tools, but tools that I care for. The friend that I borrowed the camera from does not care for that at all. He throws it around. So his has took more of a beating, but it's still in full working order and it's still a reliable machine. And one of the things I absolutely love about it is with all of the physical hardware buttons, everything is customizable. If you want to change what something does, or one of the unassigned, unlabeled buttons, if you want it to do a certain function, you can change it at your will, which I think is amazing. It really makes the camera mold around how you use it, rather than forcing you to change how you use a camera based on how it's set up. And I think that's always great to getting into a new system if you're used to something else before picking up the Fuji. So it's certainly got a really strong user experience. Many contemporary modern cameras, they have all of your settings are digital, so you change it on the screen in the menus. This is all physical. For the Fujifilm X-T4 and the similar models as well, you change the aperture on the lens itself always, and you change the ISO and the shutter speed via some dials on the top, and then there's some other settings like your compensation, your white balance, that kind of thing. It's all buttons and hardware, which certainly does create a different user experience to the average camera nowadays, where it's all just in the menus. I really like that. It makes you, I don't know what it really changes. I guess you feel more connected to the process, like on a film camera, everything is physical. I think this is sort of staying close to that, as close to that feeling as you can, whilst still being digital, which I think makes the camera quite enjoyable to use. It certainly feels like a different dynamic using it than it does with something like this, for example, where all of the settings are done inside the camera through the screens digitally. The only things you change on here is the setting you're shooting on, and that's about it. It's got a really good menu system. Everything is worded right, labeled right, and very easy to navigate. It does have a lot of settings that you can scroll through, but it doesn't take long to get used to where everything is and how to change everything. And I think that is certainly like an entry barrier with a lot of cameras when the menu systems are overcomplicated. Fuji's done a really good job on this camera of just getting around that and having it be intuitive. It's got an electronic viewfinder. I never use it. When I first got it, I used it a bit, but I'm not a fan of it. You look through the electronic viewfinder and everything looks bad. I'm not gonna lie, it is one of the downsides of the camera. When you're looking through it, it looks like you're gonna take a really bad quality, like early 2000s photo, but then when you look on the screen after you've took the photo, it looks brilliant. Don't know why it's like that. I don't care for it. I don't use it. I use the screen. It's a flip out screen. At the moment, I can see myself on the side there because I've got the screen flipped out towards myself, but very often I shoot at waist level with the screen out and pointing up to me. Really convenient for photography and videography. I swear by a flip out screen. I don't know what I would do without one. Back when I shot on the Canon, it had a flip out screen as well. I used it all the time, but even more so on this because the screen, shooting through the screen using that as your viewfinder, it's really straightforward, it's really quick, there's no delay in anything. I swear by it. I love it. I don't know what I'd do if I had a camera that didn't have a flip out screen like that. Massive bonus for the camera, and it makes up for the viewfinder in my opinion. And of course it is an X mount camera. I've only ever used one lens on it, and that is the one you're looking through right now, which is, let me read it, Fujifilm XF16 to 80mm. Brilliant lens. It's the only lens I've got at the moment. I will be getting more in the future. Not the cheapest lenses. So if you wanted a downside for the camera, the lenses ain't cheap, but they are really good. Obviously, prime lenses are better, this and that. I personally am not really that bothered. I think these are an incredible quality for what you get. And if you're going to get one lens, this is the lens that I would recommend, purely because it is so versatile. The range that you've got with 16 to 80 is incredible, making this really good for landscapes, for wildlife photography, for portraiture, for everything I've tried so far. I would highly recommend that lens. There are many very good X-mount lenses, but I can't speak on them because I've not used them yet. There is a few that I have in mind that I want to get in the future, but for now this is the only one I've got, and I've had absolutely zero problems with it. Great build quality, great visual quality, no complaints, good stuff. When it comes to photography, it is a 26.1 megapixel sensor, and it is an APS-C sensor. In a previous video I did refer to it as being full frame. It had been a long day, do forgive me. It's not full frame, it is APS-C. Still fuller frame than anything I'd ever shot on before, and I could tell. Incredible image quality. You get some really sharp photos, especially when you shoot in those perfect settings and in great lighting. It is incredible. When it comes to low light, it's amazing as well. You can ramp the ISO up so high before you introduce any noise. With the Canon I used to shoot on, I couldn't go above 800 ISO without it being like extremely noisy, almost too noisy. With that, I've shot like 6,400, 12,000 plus, and still had noiseless or almost noiseless images, which is incredible to be able to get out of those settings. For photography, the autofocus is great. I do a fair bit of wildlife photography, even just on the 16 to 80 lens. You've got to be fairly close for it, but with birds, like if you do bird photography, this might mean something to you. Like a coal tit, for example, they are really fast, they do not stick around, and they certainly do not pose for photos. And yeah, I've got some great photos of coal tits on this camera because the autofocus is really quick and really sharp, and the visual quality of the camera and that lens is incredible as well. So when it comes to photography, the autofocus is brilliant, and I again have zero complaints. In terms of film simulation, that is Fujifilm's gimmicky attraction. I don't really care for it. I have used it a bit on this camera. There was a period where I was shooting in the black and white film simulation and then turning them back to colour in post, and I found that to be a really interesting way to shoot. because you're not focused on color, you're just focused on, you know, the narrative of the photo, the dynamic, the composition and the contrast. It allows you to focus on those things without the distraction of color. It was an interesting way to shoot. But overall, I don't care for the film simulation thing. If you do, it's got a great set of simulations to choose from, but personally, that's just not something I've ever really dabbled with. But overall, when it comes to photography on the X-T4, it is really versatile. There has not been anything I have wanted to shoot photography-wise on this camera and with that lens as well that I haven't been able to, and get incredible results. So in terms of photography, really strong camera. Then of course we move on to video. It is a really good video camera. I've used it for every YouTube video that I've done on here, and the quality has always been great. I have shot documentaries on it and the quality is great. It shoots 4K up to 30 minutes at a time, and then it auto stops to prevent overheating. I have had it overheat on me a handful of times. Usually that's when I've got it in direct sunlight, and that combined with shooting 4K overheats it quicker than I would like. But other than that, the video usually is just brilliant. 30 minutes is usually enough to film whatever it is I'm trying to film, unless I'm having a rough day and I'm stuttering on every word, which does happen. But other than then, video periods are usually fine, 30 minutes does, and the video quality is really good. I rarely ever get noise shooting video. You'd have to be in some pretty rough lighting conditions and some pretty dodgy settings to pull some noise into video on the X-T4. And in terms of stabilization, I believe that the lens is, auto image stabilized, and the camera also has inbuilt stabilization as well. These are good for wobbles, like when you're just stood, natural movement. And if you were, say, walking with the camera and filming, it does take a bit of that off, but you're still obviously going to be able to tell that you've got footsteps. You'll see the camera shaking. But overall, the image stabilization is decent. I just wouldn't rely on it to cover everything up, but then I don't think there's a camera out there that can do that. And then F-log. I usually just shoot standard, no film simulation, no F-log, just standard color and everything. That's what I'm doing right now. That is exactly what you'll be seeing. When you want to have a bit more creative freedom, it does have a log mode, F-log, and it is quite versatile and easy to use. The first thing I shot in F-log was the documentary I recently put up that recently went live on the channel, Many a Catch. It is a short documentary about my granddad and his 71 years of fishing. I shot that in F-log and I color graded it myself. First time ever doing that, and it was really easy to use. There was a bit of a hiccup at first, learning curve getting into it, but after that, when I was sort of used to what the process was, it was quite easy to get the color and the lighting and the contrast and the sharpness that I wanted out of that F-log. So I haven't really shot in log in anything else, but the F-log, to me at least, seems really strong as a log system. So yeah, it is an incredible balance between photography and video. I do both as a hobby and as work, and this camera is really good at balancing the two. When I was just using this, I did try and make videos in the past on channels that no longer exist, and the visual quality was always naff. This couldn't do anything but take a noisy video. Didn't like it, wasn't very good, but this has incredible video quality whilst also having really good photo quality, and you can switch between them really easily. I don't think there's a great deal of cameras out there with such a good balance between the two. This is certainly one of them. In terms of battery life, it's not the worst, but it's not like insane. It's nothing to write home about. I've only got one battery for the camera. It is the only battery that I use at the moment. Really, I should buy more, but money. I don't even have a battery charger. I just charge it by plugging the camera straight in, and it charges the battery in the camera. But usually the battery is enough to last any session of anything I'm doing. So if I'm going out doing photography all day, there's no question it's gonna last, it's gonna be fine. If I'm shooting 4K video, then it usually does have a really good time. For example, that documentary that I shot, so all of the sort of B-roll actually out fishing clips, I've recorded all of those in one day, and the camera battery was fine. It wasn't even close to being out by the end of that. When I shot the interview, that was like a 20-25 minute recording, didn't touch the battery. At the moment it is on, so on the screen it represents the battery by 5 bars. The battery is currently on 3 bars. I've been out today shooting photography on the camera. I've been recording this video now for 20 minutes in 4K, and I had the camera out a couple of days ago as well, shooting some 4K B-roll and some photos as well. It was charged last before that, and it's still on 3 bars, more than half battery. So really, I can't complain with the battery life on the X-T4. So some reflections. I didn't think much of Fuji before I got the camera, but I was pleasantly surprised when I first tested it off a friend, and even more pleasantly surprised by how good it is over the past almost a year that I've been using it as my primary camera. Whether it's for hobby shooting, photo, video, whether it's professional, doesn't matter. This camera is capable of everything in a really good quality. I've had many compliments from work that I've done, and I'm always happy with the quality in any hobby sort of stuff I'm doing, be that YouTube videos, photography. And then when it comes to those things as well, it is incredibly versatile. You can shoot anything on it and it does it really well. It's great value for the price. So I got the camera second hand, and the body, if I remember rightly, was a little under £1,000, 900 and something. And the lens was just under 700, so all in, the camera was about 1,700, which is quite a lot of money for a lot of us out there. Certainly, it's a lot of money to me, but you get really good quality from it, and it is really versatile. So, like, if you're going to invest in the camera, it's a strong one to consider because the quality is incredible and you can do a lot with it. But yeah, so that's my experience with the Fuji. That is my opinion, that's my take. I think if you're looking to upgrade a camera or get a system that is really, really good at photo and video, put this one on your list to consider. It's worth it. I don't think I mentioned either, it's quite light, fairly flat body, so if you're carrying it around all day, pretty good for that as well. Right, I shouldn't have wore this fleece because the sun is beaming through the window, and I'm boiling now. So I'm going to take that off. I'm going to go. Sound for watching. I'll see you in the next one. It shoots 4K up to 30 seconds long. I'm doing it 30 seconds, not 30 seconds. It shoots 4K up to 30 minutes at a time.